I logged the contact at 0.34 cycles past the Vareth corridor threshold, and my first entry read, isolated hull, no military posture, distress transit. The vessel called itself the Unbroken Compact. Transponder code registered Vel-Sothran Auxiliary Registry. A stolen code, I know now. Though it was a clean steal, clean enough that our verification layer passed it in 4 seconds flat. Hull configuration matched no current Terran warship class in our archive, which I noted as consistent with a decommissioned or heavily modified frame. Drive signature was low, intermittent, the kind of output a ship makes when it is damaged motivator. It held position 11,000 kilometers off the corridor mouth and did nothing threatening. It simply sat there, the way a vessel sits when it has run out of better options. I submitted my outcome tree to the Arbitration Council within the hour. I had done this 11,000 times across 14 postings. The tree had 112 branches. I trimmed it to 6 viable ones and weighted them by probability. The heaviest branch, 6% of projected outcomes, read, isolated Terran hull requesting negotiated transit, crew count between 12 and 40, 0 fleet support within 6 light hours. The surrounding volume had been certified clear 11 days prior. Our passive array had swept it, logged it, and the certification had been countersigned by 2 senior auditors and filed. The volume was empty. That was not an opinion. That was a document. I transmitted the compliance demand at 1-2 cycles. Standard protocol, identify state registry violations, quest crew manifest. Advise the vessel that armed transit of the Vareth corridor, without Exactorate sanction, carried a response under Provision 9. I did not expect trouble. Provision 9 responses were, in my experience, administrative. Crews complied. Crews always complied, because our outcome trees told them. Correctly, almost always. That compliance was the only branch leading to survival. The Unbroken Compact did not respond. I noted this as anomalous. I transmitted again at 1:09, again at 1:14. Between transmissions, I updated my outcome tree, adding weight to the branch I had labeled Intransigent Isolated Actor, a category covering damaged, vessels with non-functional comm arrays, crews incapacitated by life support failure, or occasionally, a captain making a political gesture that he expected to resolve via later negotiation. I assigned this branch 38%. I assigned the branch labeled Deliberate Provocation, fleet-backed 3%. I did this because the volume had been certified clear, because our passive array did not miss fleet-sized contacts, because WFTEEN 400 warships running dark inside a certified clear zone was not a thing that happened. I am writing this report from what remains of arbitration cruiser Seveth Nor Primary, which is also my name, because Vel-Sothran vessels of my class are designated by their auditor's name as a reminder that every vessel's fate is the auditor's responsibility. I want whoever reads this to understand that I ran the correct procedures. I want them to understand that the certification was legitimate. I want them to understand that I am not filing this as an excuse. I am filing it because I do not know what to put in the outcome column, and I have been staring at that field for 6 hours. At 121 cycles, the Unbroken Compact powered its weapons. The gesture was, purely technical standpoint, trivial. A single frigate of that class carried 8 forward-facing rail batteries and 2 missile clusters, configured for a vessel in the light escort role. Against our arbitration fleet of 220 hulls, the engagement model showed a suppression time of approximately 40 seconds. I did not even escalate to full combat posture. I flagged it as a Provision 9 enforcement action, standard response, and authorized the lead suppression wing to advance. Junior Scanner Technician Vorethnos, a sound I had not previously heard from a Vel-Sothran officer. I have reviewed this moment many times. What Vorethnos produced was not a report. It was not a query. It was a sound a logic-trained Vel-Sothran makes when the model breaks so completely that no trained response exists for what comes next. I looked at the passive array readout. I looked at it again. I requested a hardware diagnostic. The diagnostic returned clean. 1,407 contacts. Cold signatures, power minimal, no active drives, which is why the passive array had not caught them before, because our passive array, like all Exactorate arrays, was calibrated to detect active drive signatures and weapons lock emissions. It was not calibrated to detect 1,400 warships that had entered the volume 11 days ago under cold running, matched our own orbital drift rate to within measurement tolerance, and simply waited. They were already inside minimum response distance. Every one of our 220 hulls. The formation they held was not aggressive in posture. That is the thing I keep returning to. They were not angled for a charge. They were not arrayed for a broadside engagement. They were positioned the way you position ships. When you have already calculated that no countermaneuver is possible and you want your enemy to understand that before a single weapon fires. It was not a military formation, it was a proof. A demonstration rendered in hull metal and cold engines, showing us the answer to an equation we had not known we were solving. The unbroken compact still had not fired. It held position off the corridor mouth. As it had held position for the duration of my compliance procedure, and its weapons were live, and it waited. I do not know who gave the order in the formation. I do not know the name of the officer, or whether a single officer even gave it, whether it was some distributed consensus among those 1,400 captains that the moment had arrived. What I know is that at 1.29 cycles, the Ardennes formation. That is the name I found, later, in a Terran broadcast recovered from a relay beacon, a name spoken with a flatness that told me it was not new, that it had been this formation before, in other places, for other reasons, powered up. The sound our passive array makes, when 1,400 drives ignite simultaneously, is not a sound I will describe here, because no description would be accurate. I will say only that every officer on my bridge stopped what they were doing, and no one spoke, and no one moved to their response stations, because there were no response stations relevant to what the array was showing. 6 minutes and 40 seconds. That is the figure I have in my log, and I have checked it repeatedly because it seems wrong. It seems like a number that belongs in a different kind of report, a theoretical one, a training scenario, a document designed to illustrate a principle rather than record an event. In 6 minutes and 40 seconds, the Ardennes formation reduced the Vel-Sothran Exactorate's Verith Corridor arbitration fleet, 220 vessels, 9 of them capital class, built across 4 generations of Exactorate shipyard production, to a debris field that will take centuries to fully disperse. The unbroken compact did not fire once. It held its position at the corridor mouth, weapons live, and it watched. I watched it watching. I had no other function. My outcome tree had run out of branches. When the formation finished, it did not slow. It did not stop to assess damage, communicate, to file any document I have been able to locate. The Ardennes formation entered the Verith corridor at fleet speed and passed through. And the last contact I logged was the unbroken compact, still at its position, drives now cold again, weapons powering down. It sat there for another 40 minutes. Then it followed the formation through the corridor. My vessel was not targeted. 220 hulls in our arbitration fleet. I can confirm at least 214 were destroyed outright. The status of the remaining 5 is unknown. We have received no response from them, and our long-range sensors cannot locate them. My vessel sustained no damage. No weapon was directed at us. We were left here with working engines, a working comm array, and a passive sensor suite still showing, on replay, the moment 1,400 contacts resolved in a volume we had certified as empty. I have spent 6 hours on the outcome column of this report. The Exactorate's compliance protocol requires that every engagement conclude with a classified outcome, complied, suppressed, escalated pending, or unresolved. I have tried each of these, none of them fit. What happened at the Verith corridor was not a failure of compliance. It was not a suppression. It was not escalated. There was no escalation, because there was no negotiation, no exchange, no communication at all, after my initial demand went unanswered. What it was, I think, is a variable I excluded. My outcome tree had 112 branches. I ran the correct model. I ran the model our training mandates. The model that has produced accurate results across 11,000 logged contacts at 14 postings over 19 years. Tree accounted for damaged vessels, political gestures, fleet support within 6 light hours, hardware failures, crew incapacitation, and deliberate provocation. It did not account for a fleet that had been sitting inside our own certified clear volume for 11 days. At our own drift rate. waiting for the moment we formally demanded compliance, before it showed us what compliance had always cost them to offer. I do not know what to put in the outcome column. I am leaving it blank. Let the next auditor decide.